don't even believe that these things are possible. But right now, there are 3 different universities in the United States that have applied for a patent for what they call an invisibility cloak. So if any of your kids, read things like Harry Potter and watch those, they have those invisibility cloaks and all that. So these cloaks are made of nano mirrors. Mirrors that are so small that they cannot be seen. And what they do is they reflect the light around the cloak. So I could literally put the cloak on now and you will just see through me, because that fabric is reflecting whatever image is actually supposed to be visible behind me, right? Now the problem is with 5th generation war, these are all non-kinetic warfare technologies, right? These are all 5th generation warfare technologies. Now there are 2 major problems that a country like Sri Lanka has. The first is, we are not going to be the first country to get this. In fact, we are going to get this maybe 20 or 30 years after this kind of technology becomes widely used by the richer, more powerful countries. So when we look at the advancements in autonomous weapons, when we look at the advancements in genetic engineering, in invisibility technology, in 3D printing, in all of these new facets of military technology, we as a country will not be the first to receive it. We will be way behind on the back of the list unless our foreign policy is clear enough and visionary enough to understand the threats involved and to know whose side we should be on and whose side we should not be on. Right now, once again, in a military setting like this, it might not be too valuable for us to waste time discussing politics, but unfortunately for a proper discussion we need to acknowledge this. The analogy that I always like to make is that all of you are like a sword, right? The politicians are the actual swordsmen. So it does not matter how sharp you are. You could be the best sword in the world. You could be the sharpest, deadliest, smoothest, most professional weapon in the world. But if the person wielding that weapon has no idea how that weapon should be wielded, all of that is completely negated, right? I mean, you could put a wooden stick in the hands of a professional fencer and you could give me a very, very decorated saber. That professional fencer is going to win because he knows how to use that weapon, while I don't. You could give somebody an outdated revolver and you could give someone else, the latest Glock, but the accurate marksman is the one who is going to win, not necessarily the one with the best firearm. So when we look at all these different things, it's quite clear that 5th generation warfare provides us with not only a whole new avenue of threats, but also a whole new avenue of opportunities. Because once again, despite all the pessimistic things that I've said so far, the reality is that we are one of the few countries in the world who can actually say we have success in 5th generation warfare. Look at the way that the Sri Ministry website combated the LTT's misinformation campaign when we started ramping up the war against the LTTE. Look at the way in which the LTTE managed to brainwash a whole bunch of people, and yet after the LTTE were defeated, we have successfully rehabilitated 12,000, 14,000 ex-combatants, none of whom have actually gone back to a life of violence. Who else can say this? An example I keep bringing up is, remember a few years ago there was a terrorist in London who went and stabbed up a whole bunch of people at the London Bridge. Now that guy was in some rehabilitation program for 7 years. And the first thing he did after he was released was go back and stab a bunch of people, go back into a life of terrorism. We have not had that here. Where even the most advanced countries in the world have been unable to permanently rehabilitate terrorists, and yet we have been able to permanently rehabilitate somewhere between 10 and 15,000 former terrorists to the point where we've been able to have normalcy again. On how to deal with fifth generation war scenarios. And that's what you see the Russians doing now, that's what you see the Israelis doing now. I mean, when the Ukraine-Russia war first started, what did everybody say? Oh, let's salute the brave Ukrainians. Look at how noble and brave and unflappable the noble Ukrainians are against the bumbling and fumbling Russians, right? Because Ukraine very successfully used fifth generation warfare tactics against Russia. I mean, can you imagine a $500 million tank taken out by a $5 Molotov cocktail that we can make in a room, right? But now that we see Russia adopting fifth generation warfare tactics as well, Russia is in complete control of the conflict now. Russia is completely dictating terms in terms of the Ukraine conflict now, to the point where I'm sure many of you know, even last week when the US Congress decided to meet up and take a vote on whether to send more money to the Ukrainians or not, now American politicians, especially the Republican Party, are now reluctant to send any more money to the Ukrainians. They're like, what's the point in sending so many billions of dollars when the Russians cannot be defeated? They've already now proven that they can adapt to these fifth generation tactics, and there's no way that they're going to be defeated now. Look at Israel and Gaza, where Israel spent billions and billions of dollars on the Iron Dome and on securing its borders and all that, but they never thought that those guys would come in paragliders and rafts and motorbikes and all that. They were expecting a high-level, high-technology threat from the Gaza and West Bank side. They didn't realize that the Israel-Gaza attack that happened on the 7th of October, to my knowledge, it is the first time that an entity without a standing army, Gaza doesn't even have a standing army, and an entity without a standing army was able to invade a legitimate military power by air, by boat, and by sea and by land. All three physical domains that we have, the Hamas was able to infiltrate Israel using all three domains, and they don't even have a standing army for this, right? So these are the things that fifth generation warfare consists of. And even after that, look at how the information war has progressed. For the first 1 week, everybody sympathized with Israel. When there were videos of them carrying girls away and carrying old people away and kidnapping babies and all that, for about 1 week, there was great international solidarity behind Israel. As soon as Israel started retaliating through military means, look at how quickly that narrative changed. Look at how quickly the perception changed, to the point where now there's enormous pressure on Israel, even through its own allies like the Americans, to go for a more long-term ceasefire. So even though last week's UN vote for a ceasefire was vetoed by the Americans have made it very clear that this cannot be permanent. So in closing, I don't want to ramble for too long. In closing, fifth generation warfare is a transformative experience in the history of warfare itself, as you already know. And countries like Sri Lanka, we will be at the heart of it. Make no doubt about it. Right? We will be at the heart of this, either on a practical level, which I hope never happens, or on a theoretical level, which I hope will happen. I hope we can be at the center of this as people sharing their past experiences with the world, rather than as people who are sharing their current experiences, because that would mean that we have a major problem there. So I'll stop with this. I would like to congratulate the organizing team once again for putting this together and for having a very, very clear picture of what fifth generation warfare is. And hopefully this will be the first of many, many discussions in this country where we move closer and closer to a sharp understanding of what this is and what we can do. So best of luck to the vision of the Commandant and the Army War College. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your thought-provoking keynote speech. It was indeed an eye-opener to all of us to begin with the rest of the sessions of the symposium. Now, let me have the honor of inviting the Commandant of the Army War College, Major General UKDDP Ubugama, RWP, RSP, USP, NDC, PSC, to present a token of appreciation and the certificate to the today's keynote speaker. I would also like to invite Mr. Nilantan Niruthan, the keynote speaker of the Army War College Symposium 2023, to accept the same. Thank you, sir.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, now we are heading for the tea break. And the first session of the symposium will be commence at 10:30 hours.
Please note that all virtual participants must log in 15 minutes prior to the session, and all physical participants please be seated by 10:25 hours. Thank you.